Loretta, you've been inspiring others to develop and model an inclusive mindset for a long time. Your story, it inspired me. How do you do it?
Hello, my name is Kaylee Vogan. I've been an educator for 7 years and am now the Education Advisor for Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools and Content Creator for the Special Olympics Unified Classroom. Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools is a program for schools pre-K through university that intentionally promotes meaningful social inclusion by bringing together students with and without intellectual disabilities to create accepting school environments. Structured programs like Unified Champion Schools can foster an inclusive mindset by bringing students with and without intellectual disabilities together and challenging them to be the agents of change, thereby transforming the lives of students and challenging social norms. I am joined by Taja Ilarunt, a Special Olympics Florida athlete and alumna of a Unified Champion School, Jackson Escamilla, a current Special Olympics U.S. Youth Ambassador from Texas, and Loretta Claiborne, Special Olympics Chief Inspiration Officer, Board Director, and athlete. We are here to introduce and discuss the concept of an inclusive mindset and how explicitly teaching and modeling this mindset can positively impact the lives of your students inside and outside of the classroom. Someone with an inclusive mindset has the predisposition to empathize with, understand, welcome, and accord dignity to those who are socially excluded. Individuals with intellectual disabilities deserve to be included with their peers in accessible and equitable leadership opportunities at school and in the community. Our goal for this session is to give you multiple perspectives on how you can ensure positive representation, evolution, and adaptation occurs in your classroom, in person or virtually, without abandoning the core values and needs of all students. Hi Taja, hey Jackson, hi Loretta. You are just 3 of thousands who have had the chance to shift to an inclusive mindset. Your stories are so powerful. In fact, stories like yours, coupled with 10 years of program evaluation, inspired us at Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools to dig deeper and ask the questions, are there specific and measurable ways we can promote inclusivity? Can we do this by teaching and modeling key skills and beliefs that promote an inclusive mindset? The short answer is yes. So let's start at the beginning and learn the negative impacts of exclusion and having a closed mindset. Loretta, you have been a Special Olympics athlete since 1970. Can you describe what it was like for you when you weren't included with your peers and didn't feel a sense of belonging in your community?
It was tough. It was hard for me because when I started school, I got teased a lot, bullied a lot, and I never forget our classes. They were separate from everybody else. And when I was in school also, kids would torment me because of my disability. And I would say to them, why are you doing that to me? I wouldn't do that to you. And the only way I could speak back was using my fist. By the way, I became a 4th degree black belt in reality. But when I thought about school and how I was treated, it was awful. It was, no inclusive environment at all. Today, our students have so much inclusive environment because of the Unified Champion Schools.
Taja, what was your story like before you adopted an inclusive mindset?
Before I adapted to the inclusive mindset, I had a dark story, and I was not accepted into society or my school because I had a disability. No one really saw me for who I was, and I had just lost my mother. And so I was just going through a really hard time. I had no one to count on, and I had no one to talk to. to think about it, I really did not have a story. I was just a lost kid with the intellectual disability. When I was in elementary school, I was in general ed classes. This is when I found out I had a disability and was the only one in the class with a disability. Classmates would mock me for stuttering. There were days that I did not even want to go to school because I was just so tired of the bullying, but I kept pushing my way to go through it every day. When I see things happening like this now, I step in right away because it shouldn't be happening. An example of this is when I was in high school, when I saw a general ed student about to bully a student with an intellectual disability. I watched for a moment, but then I saw something that changed my whole attitude, and I stepped in and I told the person to back away. Now, this leads me to a question I have for all of you. What would you do if you were in that spot? Just think about it and use that as a perspective on how you can be an upstander instead of a bystander. How about you, Jackson?
I have personally seen a lot of exclusion in my life because I do have a twin brother with multiple physical and intellectual disabilities. I remember coming home from elementary school and being so upset and just telling my mom, why is everybody treating Aiden, my brother, so differently? Why are they calling him monsters? Why are they excluding him in games on the playground? Why are they not letting him and treating him like any other person would? And as I was younger, I didn't see that. I just saw Aiden, my twin brother, and nothing else. And as my growth for Special Olympics and wanting to advocate for others increased, I wanted to advocate more for people with intellectual disabilities who may not be able to express their emotions and their feelings like some of us people would be able to.
It sounds like you all have unique yet similar experiences. Part of really making that shift to an inclusive mindset is by actually engaging in inclusive behaviors. Behaviors with the goal of helping others feel a part of a group and that build a sense of community. Loretta, what type of behaviors would we see from a teacher in a classroom who has an inclusive mindset?
Everyone should be included. And I would give an example. If a teacher is talking to a bunch of students and there are people with intellectual disabilities, for instance, a young man with cerebral palsy who might have trouble speaking, or it just takes him an extra second, that teacher should start with that student and say, students, everyone's going to have a chance to speak. When I ask you a question, I'll ask everyone. For those of you who don't understand that Michael it takes him a little extra time, let's give him that time. In the same way, Michael, if you will understand that all of the students are like you in some sort, it'll be a question that everybody's going to need that extra second or two to think. So you start with that inclusive mindset right in the classroom, because some of the students that come to school, that's their first chance of being included.
Taja, was there anyone who demonstrated those inclusive behaviors to you and inspired you to shift your mindset?
Yes, the person that demonstrated these inclusive behaviors to me was my middle school teacher, Ms. Johnson. In middle school, I did not have the best attitude, and I was negative about everything. I never smiled because I was just getting over the loss of my mother. She wasn't having it, and I thought that this was the way to go about life. So she sat me down, and she gave me a pencil and a paper, and she told me to write down my feelings. At first, my first thought was like, who would care about what I wrote? She told me to trust the process. and that my fellow students would listen, and everyone is here for me. The key was that I had to let people in. I gave my first speech afterwards. It felt so relieved. I felt so relieved. I felt like I had finally found my place in the world. I felt like a person that belonged, and that's all thanks to Ms. Johnson. Then I entered my freshman year of high school with a lot of the same problems. I kept the negative mindset that I had from middle school. That was when I met my teacher and now my mentor, Miss Stevenson. I entered her classroom being so loud, like just being really rude and disrespectful. She sat me down and told me, this is not the way to go. This is not the way for you to go in life. And then she told me all about Loretta Claiborne. And when I heard Loretta Claiborne's story, I was like, whoa, if she could do all this and still keep the faith and hold on and don't give up, I can do it. So I can say that's when my whole mindset changed, because I wanted to be like her and stand up for other kids that couldn't find their voice quite yet.
It sounds like you had to show a lot of social courage. An inclusive mindset is also demonstrated by providing emotional support and inclusive risk, kind of like what you did, Taja. This is under this larger umbrella of positive risk-taking. It means one must be willing to challenge social norms in order to make a difference. Loretta, what kind of risk-taking behavior have you seen in life? How did it result in inclusion?
I've seen a lot of risk-taking things in life, and I can start with my teacher, Mrs. Reaver, who just passed away 2 weeks ago at the age of 91. She took risk, and she told me one day it takes a risk in order sometimes to be successful. Step out of your box.
Jackson, I know you've also taken some social risks for inclusion. Can you share some of those risks you took in order to promote inclusion? And was it hard to stay motivated?
One of my biggest memories from Special Olympics and the beginning of my Special Olympics journey was it was my sophomore year in high school, and I was with my Special Olympic pair, James Ramirez, who is my best friend, and we got an opportunity to speak at our state games in San Antonio, Texas. As soon as I walked up on that stage and started talking with James about something that I was really passionate for, I just knew that this is where I was supposed to be. And at that moment, I knew that I wanted to pursue my life of inclusion and really make sure everybody feels accepted and everybody has a voice. And I think at that time, I was so scared and in the moment, but as soon as I started talking and as soon as I started meeting people after the speech and making connections, I knew that I was here to make a difference and I was here to change people's mindset to a more inclusive mindset.
It's really great hearing how you all had a little bit of support at school. And it sounds like your teachers, your mentors, and even your friends supported you in meaningful ways as you started to develop an inclusive mindset. Loretta, you mentioned how you had a teacher who just gave you a little bit that push, that connection with you, that reminding of how you can actually use your voice for good. Can you tell us a little bit more about your story and how you moved and entered Special Olympics and how that helped you adopt and spread the inclusive mindset?
Sure, I'm going to tell you the beginning of my story. Taja probably saw it in the movie based on my life. I was born blind with intellectual disability, didn't walk to the age of 4. Then I was put into school at the age of 5. Of course, my sisters, I could see them progressing, doing different things. Of course, I was held back my first 3 years because of my intellectual disability. They were going to place me into 2 institutions, one in Philadelphia and one in the northern part of Pennsylvania. But my mother says, look, you have a classroom, as she went to a meeting, you have a classroom and you have a class for students with intellectual disabilities. She says, and you're going to educate my kid. come on, Loretta, you and I are going to learn. Her goal was for me to graduate from high school, and I did. So when I think back about my story, I think about how things were then, but it's still like that today. Tasha's younger than I am, and she still had to endure that in school. I work in schools now, and when I go into an elementary school, I would start out with young people and tell them what it's like to be a person with a different ability. And I'll explain what my disability is, and then we will talk. And that's what's unique about today, because we have unified schools. That's breaking that stereotype, starting in the elementary school. So when I look back, something I didn't have, I always say, my dream is today's students' reality.
Each one of you have not only adopted an inclusive mindset, but now you are empowering others to do the same. Loretta, you do this every time you go into an elementary school and you share your powerful story. Jackson, how are you spreading the word, and how do you model inclusion?
I am actually currently working on a documentary that showcases unique experiences in people's lives. For example, Tasha Illarant, one of my best friends, she's in the documentary and telling her very unique and a very impactful story. And I really want to showcase these really cool stories in this documentary, and hopefully I can spread this out to as many people as possible and let everybody know that this is what's happening in our country. This is what is happening in our world. Exclusion is still a thing in 2021, and I want that to change. Tasha, aren't you also using your voice to include others?
Yes, I am, Jackson. To everyone, my voice is very powerful, and the words that come out of my mouth can help change someone's mindset and life. I am so grateful that I am able to use my voice to include others, because I personally know how it feels not to have a voice, or not able to be able to speak up for yourself. I felt like God gave me a powerful voice for a reason, so I can stand up for the others who does not have a voice yet. For my future, I see myself improving my public speaking. And when people see me, they will see me as a leader, whether it's in my church or within the Special Olympics community. God connected me to Special Olympics, and I am so grateful. I have also started my own podcast called Overcoming Obstacles with Tasha. I am so excited about it, because I am able to share my platforms to help others share their stories, and to have an impact on their lives, to know that they are a part of this world. And I know moving forward in a unified generation, I'm going to make a huge difference in the people that I come in contact with. Loretta, you've been inspiring others to develop and model an inclusive mindset for a long time. I mean, your story, it inspired me. How do you do it?
I don't know, Tasha. I think it's just God and the people in my life. And I would have to say it started with my mother. And I remember her saying, prejudice starts at home. And I remember her saying that to another parent because their kid did something to me. And well, of course, it starts at home, but at school, they kind of correct that. And it came out through my teacher, Mrs. Reaver. And as time went by, I just have to say that I'm blessed with the people. And I would say it started because one of the things I wanted to be so bad was an athlete. And I never will forget it as a kid. I wanted to be a nurse, a veterinarian, and an athlete. And the two wasn't going to happen, a nurse and a veterinarian. But when a teacher came to me, a counselor came to me, because he knew I was having anger issues. He says, I have something for you. And I didn't think it was going to make a difference. I think you'll like this because you like to run Special Olympics. And it was that whole program that told me, come in. You don't have to look on the other side of the fence. Come into Special Olympics. You are here. And just like everything else, I used to say, yeah, here's another thing. It's going to come today and go tomorrow. That was basically how things went. But here Special Olympics is 52 years later, changing lives, changing attitudes and changing minds for a more inclusive world. Not only for people who are like me, who are much older, but from the age of 2.5 to above in our schools. And it's just making so much impacting input on people. And now when I say I'm included, when I walk out my door and I have a conversation with somebody, I can speak. I don't have to use my hands. When somebody is standing in a group, I'm a part of that group, because I would say once you're included, it's just so much different. You don't need the anger. But when you're excluded, you develop hate and anger. And we're in a more inclusive world, because I would have to say one of the reasons why is because of Special Olympics and the Unified Champion Schools, who was breaking the stigma of exclusion and turning around and bringing inclusion from the student's mind to the adult's mind to people who are my age. And if it wasn't for Special Olympics, I wouldn't be here today talking about inclusion.
Our research and these stories suggest two things. One, there's a positive impact of Unified Champion Schools on attitudes and perceptions of school as a socially inclusive community. And two, that an inclusive mindset consists of personal characteristics, such as being open to new people and ideas, recognizing that everyone has worth and value, and being empathetic.
Youth like Tasha and myself have learned these traits and skills directly in school and through our actions of others. Now we use these traits to continue the mission to spread inclusion.
And it is clear that an inclusive mindset can be influenced by a school structure where intentional opportunities that bring students with and without intellectual disabilities together are provided. It also requires teachers who use natural opportunities to teach and model inclusive behavior in classrooms. Loretta mentioned how when a teacher provides wait time or finds alternate ways for students to respond to show that their voice is important. Those behaviors don't only allow that student to know they are capable and valued, but it also models to the other students that efforts should be made to include everyone. By doing this, we can continue to learn from one another. In an effort to support your shift to an inclusive mindset, Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools has curated resources that explicitly teach the skills necessary for the development of an inclusive mindset in all students. The Special Olympics Unified Classroom is an easily accessible online classroom filled with free resources for K-12 educators and administrators. These resources can be implemented and help create an inclusive mindset in your classroom or even within the foundation of your entire school. These free resources have been designed with the educator and with the student in mind. For starters, they are standards-based, and they help meet individualized student academic needs while simultaneously supporting their social and emotional growth. They are adaptable to fit the specific needs of your students. Students will be able to access relevant, explicit, and engaging content at the click of a button. They will discover what traits and skills are needed to build an inclusive mindset and how they can put their new learning into action. We all know the power of connections. Loretta, Jackson, and Taja shared how simple yet meaningful connections had a positive impact on their lives. You can connect your students to positive people and positive ideas by viewing our Unified Talks tutorials on YouTube. These tutorials are hosted by Special Olympics youth ambassadors. Our own youth, like Taja and Jackson, teach, inspire, and model these traits needed for an inclusive mindset. Viewers can connect with our hosts and show the steps they are taking towards an inclusive mindset by engaging on social media challenges. Educators can distribute packaged lessons with activities in hybrid, virtual, or traditional school settings. They can be completed in large group, small group, or one-on-one scenarios. They can be the core of a lesson or a supplemental task. The options, they're endless. And the best part, each lesson has clear objectives so you and your students can see how they are growing towards a more inclusive mindset. They're able to strengthen academic skills, but most importantly, they can discover the core values of inclusion. You'll also find organic discussions between Special Olympics youth ambassadors and partners. They model how to have a productive conversation about important themes while offering various perspectives, ideas, and information. These are supplemented with discussion guides, so you can extend that conversation with your own students in your classroom or even your school. Your students will learn to listen to and talk with students of all abilities. These discussions will foster a sense of belonging and develop inclusive attitudes. In all, our online community allows students with and without intellectual disabilities to intentionally participate in comfortable dialogue and grow as individuals while also working on their academic skills. Educators and students will become agents of change and take the beginning steps to adopting an inclusive mindset in their mind, their school, and their community. Educators, you hold the power to provide lessons that can help your students grow beyond what is just measured on a test. You can provide the tools and beliefs to help all of your students adopt the inclusive mindset, leading to a more successful, joyful, and purposeful life. Are you ready to join the inclusion revolution?
And are you ready to shift your mindset?
Are you ready to spread the word of inclusion?
Are you ready?
Check out our free resources at generationunified.org. Here you will find an abundance of content and resources, like
our Unified Talk tutorials featuring me
and me.
You'll also find other videos and stories that reveal the value of inclusion. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss when we drop a video.
You'll find all of the lessons in our unified classroom. These can be downloaded and used immediately so you can start spreading the core beliefs behind an inclusive mindset.
Join the conversation and ensure you are giving your students the tools to have an inclusive mindset.
Or help us expand the conversation. We are open and excited to collaborate with others. If you have valuable resources, ideas, or stories that can help us enhance our unified classroom and continue the conversation behind inclusion, reach out. And be sure to check out our landing page for more information. Here, you'll find additional resources and videos. Thank you so much for learning with us today.